come on, it's part 3 now. You've got to wake up and make an appearance at some point. No, apparently not. So this is part 3 of my classic horror DVD collection. Let's just get on with it, shall we? So I've got another Universal collection here, just a mini one. We've got The Mummy and The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I borrowed this from work with no intention to take it back. Yeah, The Mummy, I mean, it's a cult classic. A lot of people do refer to it. Personally, it doesn't do a lot for me. I think I like the stereotype mummy, you know, the one that looks like a burns victim covered in bandages, and I know that annoys people, but for me, that is what a mummy is, you know. That's just my opinion. Creature from the Black Lagoon, though, oh, what a film! What a film! Real original monster movie, if you like, you know, without having to dig into, you know, novels like Dracula and Frankenstein or what have you. Yeah, it's really beautifully shot as well. It's in black and white, but yeah, it looks stunning. Some of the underwater shots are just fantastic. Brilliant film. So, going back to The Mummy again, I do have the Hammer classics here. So there's the original, well, not the original, but as far as Hammer's concerned, starring Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee starring as the Mummy. Absolutely brilliant classic. Look at that picture. It's a real classic movie poster, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's a great film, well received. What wasn't well received was the sequels, and I love the sequels. And I'm going to go as far as saying, and this is going to really wind people up, I think I prefer the sequels to the first one. I don't know why. Not a lot happens in them. The stories are weak. But I don't know, that to me, I really enjoy them. They just feel like typical classic horror films. And like I said, you know, you got your typical bandaged mummy there, and got that poster. It's just great, isn't it? Yeah, I love these films. I really do. But that's my opinion. The Horror Express. So let me tell you something about this film. I purchased this several times and I could not get a decent copy. One copy I bought was totally out of sync. Another one just wouldn't work. I just had so much trouble getting hold of this. One of the copies though had a great poster, and I kept it and put it on the inside. Let me show you. Look at that. That's just like a real classic horror movie poster. I should actually just use that as the front cover, shouldn't I? Yeah, this film stars Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, you know, the two guys you tend to see in, you know, all the Hammer films or what have you, although they starred in Amicus films too. Let me fix that up a bit. Yeah, so The Horror Express. The entire film is based on a train, and I don't know what it is, but I've got an obsession with films that are just based on trains. I don't know why. I'm not really into trains as such, but, you know, films like, not even horror films, like Narrow Margin, The Polar Express, the Darjeeling Unlimited. I don't know what it is, but I just love that kind of everyone being isolated on one kind of small vehicle, and, you know, nobody knows each other, but they have to get to know each other, and then some kind of circumstance will happen or what have you. I don't know. I love films like that, and Horror Express is one of those films too. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away without spoiling it if you fancy watching this film, but it's basically Christopher Lee is an archaeologist of some kind and discovers a fossil, if you like. But the fossil turns out to be alive in some way, and it causes loads of havoc on the train. And yeah, it's a great camp little horror. It's totally worth a watch. But make sure you get a good version of it. How are we doing over there? Great. So, Curse of the Werewolf, which is Hammer's take on, well, the Wolfman, if you like, starring Oliver Reed. Yeah, Oliver Reed, to me, was one of those kind of controversial actors. He was a bit of a drinker, wasn't he? Liked to fight, but he was a great actor. And this was one of the films that I think really kind of set him off, if you like. You know, got him known in the mainstream. Yeah, brilliant film. I think it's based in Spain. Just a really good kind of Wolfman film. If you're into werewolf films, you need to see this. So I've got some Blu-ray DVD combis here as well. This one is The Skull. It's an Amicus film starring Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee. It's a bit of a cheesy film. Some of the effects are a little dated and to be desired. In fact, I watched this recently, and there's a scene where the skull is floating from room to room, and you can see the wires where you see the skull's floating around and it's hung up by wires, but you know what, it doesn't matter. The story's basic, but it's still really, really fun. There's a great kind of dream sequence featuring Peter Cushing. It's a good, fun film. It's not perfect, but it is great. I think it's about, the skull, I think, is kind of possessed from the mind of the Marquis de Sade, and that's what makes it float around or whatever. But yeah, it's a good, fun film. The City of the Dead. I watched this recently on Amazon Prime, and the version I watched, it was terrible quality. In fact, some would actually say it's unwatchable. I don't know how I managed to watch it from start to finish. It was really, really just, I don't know, it didn't look good. But Arrow here, this company that kind of put together these Blu-rays and DVDs, have really polished it up and done a good job. Fascinating thing about this as well is it had a different title. I think it was called Horror Hotel, which is what it's known as in America. And if we open this, they actually have the American title there, and you can actually reverse the sleeve. In fact, I think that's a little bit better, don't you? I might have to turn that around later. So what I understand is in America, as it's known as Horror Hotel, a lot of the, well, there's a couple of scenes taken out apparently, whether it was just too much for the Americans, I don't know. I find that hard to believe, really. But yeah, the British version has the extra scenes in it, and as far as I'm aware, this has got those added scenes. Great film, proper kind of cultist film. It's based in a village that nobody really goes to and nobody comes or leaves. It's got some people live there and they're a bit ghostly and they're into kind of witchcraft or whatever. Really good film. The Terror. So this is another film that I had trouble getting a good copy of. I bought plenty of DVDs of The Terror, and they were really, really poor quality. And it annoyed me because there's a version on YouTube that you can watch from start to finish, which is, it's polished and it's totally clean. And I just thought, why can I watch a better version on YouTube, but I can't get a decent version on DVD? And it was only until somebody stated that if you get the Blu-ray and DVD combi pack, you'll get a good polished version. They were absolutely right. Great film, really, really gothic, if you like, bit of a ghost story. Yeah, it's really dark, really creepy. Says it's directed by Roger Corman, but from what I've read online, about 5 people directed this film. It was a bit of yeah, they had trouble making it. I believe Boris Karloff as well filmed all of his scenes in 3 days. The whole film just appeared to be rushed. And it does kind of have that feeling about it as well, but I still love it. And yeah, you got a young Jack Nicholson there as well, which I believe took over some of the directing himself too. Speaking of Jack Nicholson, nice little segue. We have The Shining. I don't think this film really needs any introduction. It's probably one of the best horror films ever made. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, of course, and written by Stephen King. Stephen King, from what I understand, wasn't a fan of this film. He didn't really like it. He didn't like the direction it went in, despite the fact that it's so well received. And not a lot of people know this. Stephen King actually directed his own version of this film, which I'm yet to see, and I am interested to see that. I believe it was a straight-to-TV kind of film. It wasn't a cinema release, but he did direct his own version where he put more elements of his book in there. Did I say elephants? Elements. I'm sure I said elements, but no, he put plenty of elephants in his film. But yeah, I mean, Stanley Kubrick, I think, does a great job. He's a perfectionist, isn't he? With his angles and creating that kind of atmosphere, and really kind of just getting that kind of driving sensation out of his films. Really, really, really good. Double feature here of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We have the 1932 version and the 1941 version. A little pet hate of mine, they've put this on a double-sided disc, and I hate double-sided discs, I really do. I can't see why they couldn't fit both films on one disc, to be honest, or just stick 2 in there, crikey. If I was to pick a favourite out of the 2, I think I prefer the 1932 version. Some say the 1941. They're both great films, though, to be honest, and a really good take on the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like I showed you earlier, Hammer did a version which is the 2 faces of Dr. Jekyll, but they also did Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. Now, when I saw this title, I thought, oh, come on, Hammer, that sounds like a bad idea, drinking a potion and turning into a woman. But you know what? It's a great film, and there's even like elements of Jack the Ripper in here as well, and they really fit it in very, very well. It is a really, really good film, and I really, really enjoyed it. Totally worth a watch, and a fine Hammer classic. So while we're on the topic of Hammer films, I've got the Frankenstein collection here, all single discs, apart from, of course, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, which I've got in a box set that I showed you earlier. So this is the first in the collection, The Curse of Frankenstein. Peter Cushing at his finest, to be honest with you, and Christopher Lee starring as the monster. They did a good job on recreating the monster, because Universal, when they made the film, they gave Boris Karloff that real kind of image that became a stereotype, if you like, and Hammer didn't have the rights to use that image, so they recreated the monster and did a really, really great job. Then, of course, they did The Revenge of Frankenstein, which is a direct sequel. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this. I know a lot of people do like it, but I don't know, it just doesn't do a lot for me, this one. But still, it's a worthy sequel and totally worth a watch. Now, The Evil of Frankenstein basically just retcons the first two films. The continuity isn't there. It basically just starts again. So they've just kind of rewritten the story of Frankenstein. Not a lot of people like this one. It wasn't well received. I actually really, really do like it. There are elements in it that are a bit corny and don't work, but I did actually really like this film. I believe they worked with Universal as well, which is why they were allowed to use that kind of flat head shape, you know, like the Boris Karloff look. They got the rights to use that. Yeah, I liked it, but, you know, whatever, each to their own. Frankenstein Created Woman is one of my favourites, actually, in the series. Nice original take on the Frankenstein story. I really, really did enjoy this. I think there's a good story to be told here. It's quite emotional in parts. Yeah, it's just great, and you know, just typical Hammer as well. The way it's kind of, you know, the scenes and, you know, all the backdrops and that, it just looked great. Really, really good film. Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. To be honest with you, I at this point I kind of feel like it starts to be a bit more of the same. A lot of people do like this one, but when I get to this film, I'm a bit tired. I do like the last one, which is Frankenstein the Monster from Hell, and that wasn't well received. So I don't know, maybe I'm the controversial one. Yeah, this one doesn't do a lot for me. It definitely shows some darker elements of the character of Frankenstein. He really does kind of he does appear quite evil in this film, but yeah, whatever. Again, each to their own, isn't it? Kiss of the Vampire. Look at that poster. It's just great. I absolutely love that. So Kiss of the Vampire was originally going to be a sequel to Hammer's Dracula movie. I don't know what happened. It got rewritten. I don't know the true story behind it, but the film itself, really great. Like I said before, they made a lot of vampire films. It was kind of their go-to for horror, and it's what people loved the most, apparently. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one, actually. It's a good film, good standalone film. Nosferatu is a silent movie from 1922. Real cinema history, and well, it's got some really, really creepy scenes in it. Of course, it's a very, very old film. The story behind it is they didn't have permission from the Stoker family to make a Dracula film, so they changed the names of the characters and little elements of the story. But they didn't get away with it. They still got sued, and lots of copies were destroyed. So yeah, but I don't know, it's if you can watch silent films, I know not a lot of people can, it's definitely amongst one of the best, and it is creepy in parts. Some of the acting's a bit hammy, but you've got to appreciate it. It is a product of its time, and it's a very, very old film, but yeah, a great film to have in my collection as far as I'm concerned. And Nosferatu did get a remake in the late 70s, starring Klaus Kinski. Now this is a beautifully shot film, in my opinion. I think this is an incredibly well-detailed film. I don't like to compare the two, to be honest with you. I think they're independent in their own right. So I'm not going to say one's better than the other, but I will say that I absolutely adore this film. I really do. I think Klaus Kinski makes a good Dracula. And he is allowed to be called Dracula in this film. They changed the names back to the ones in the novel. But yeah, I just think like there's bits where you see the Carpathian mountains and stuff like that, and it just looks beautiful. I just think it's well shot, and even some of the creepier scenes as well, where you see like, you know, tombstones and stuff like that. It's visually a great film. And the remake of Nosferatu got its own sequel, again starring Klaus Kinski, which not a lot of people know about. I've got a sealed copy here, but I have seen it. It's very, I don't know how to explain this really, it's very distant to the first film. It doesn't feel like a direct sequel, it feels almost spiritual. In fact, there are some continuity issues. Not a lot of people know about it, and those who do don't really like it. I think it's actually a really good film. It's definitely very dreamy, very trippy. It's even got like a synthwave soundtrack going through it. It's just, I don't know, it's a bizarre film. Really is. It's even got Donald Pleasance in it and Christopher Plummer. You know, it hasn't got a bad cast by any means, but yeah, not well received or well known. I might have to do a review on this, to be honest with you. I enjoyed it. So we're really getting into Dracula now. Now this is the Frank Langella take on Dracula. Well, he plays Dracula in this film. This is a sealed copy. I got this from Sky, believe it or not. They do that thing where if you rent a film, sometimes you can own the DVD, and they sent me the DVD, which I was really pleased with. Yeah, it's a good take on the film. Some really, really like this film. Again, it's got Donald Pleasance in it. I liked it. I wouldn't say it's my favourite. They definitely take liberties on the story, you know, from the original novel. Dracula himself doesn't have fangs in this film, or at least he doesn't show them. But it's really well shot, you know, really directed. It looks stunningly beautiful, to be honest with you, but not my favourite take on it. Still worth watching. Now, the Francis Ford Coppola version of the film from the mid-90s is definitely a high production take on the story. A lot of people would consider this the best version. I wouldn't say it's the best in my opinion. It's definitely closer to the book than most other versions that you see out there. Yeah, it's good. Obviously, it looks great because of the high production level. You know, a lot of money was thrown at this. Yeah, and some of the kind of scenes in it, they do look great. It's definitely very theatrical. Worth watching. Not my favourite though. Now, if you want to see a version that's closer to the book than any other, I would probably advise you to watch the BBC Count Dracula. Not the one that came out recently. This is from the 70s. It's a two-part series. I think in total it goes on for just over 3 hours. But it's the closest version I can find to the book. As well as that, though, I think it's really good. It's definitely filmed for television. It doesn't have that cinema quality to it, but it is enjoyable. It's one of my favourite takes on the story, to be honest with you. I really, really enjoyed this. So you might have guessed by this point that I'm a bit of a Dracula fan. Well, I am. It's my favourite novel. This is a Spanish release. My wife bought me this for Christmas one year, of the Christopher Lee Dracula Collection, which is, of course, the Hammer Collection, if you like. Hasn't got every single one in there, though, for some reason. Maybe it's something to do with licensing, but I had to get the Scars of Dracula separate. But yeah, it's got, I think, 6 of the Dracula films in there. They do go off on a bit of a tangent towards the end, if I'm honest. The earlier ones are my favourites. In fact, my favourite Dracula film of all time is The Prince of Darkness. I absolutely love it. Even though it hasn't got much to do with the book, I just think it's a great film. And the funny thing about it is Christopher Lee is barely in it, and he doesn't have any lines, but he's still intimidating. Probably my favourite Dracula, I think, but that could be debatable. Might have to do a special episode on that, actually. But yeah, great little collection. It is Spanish. You have to select the English settings first, but they're all great, totally watchable. I've also got The Brides of Dracula here, which was a sequel, a direct sequel to the first Dracula film in this collection, but didn't have Dracula's character in it, which is understandable why it's not in this collection. This is the Christopher Lee collection, but it is a direct sequel, and it's really, really good. It's got Peter Cushing in it. He stars as Van Helsing. Yeah, really, really good. Good take on the whole vampire genre. Totally worth watching. And last but not least, another Christopher Lee Dracula film, but not from the Hammer series. So this is Count Dracula. I think it was directed by Jess Franco. Yeah, it says that on the back there. Now, it's not got a high production level, and there are some elements in there that look cheap, and basically this was Christopher Lee trying to make a version of the film, or trying to make a version that was closer to the book than, say, some of the Hammer films. There are some liberties taken. It's not entirely true to the book, but it's certainly closer than, say, the Hammer version. Not a lot of people like this one, but I thought it was very enjoyable. There are moments where you feel like the quality isn't quite there. Some of the acting isn't stellar, but it's still worth a watch. And that concludes my classic horror DVD collection. I'm really sorry about this one, by the way. I really thought she'd make more of an effort. You know, very, very rude. She slept through the entire thing. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching. I hope to give you some classic horror movie reviews very, very soon. Until then, I don't know who they are, but if you don't subscribe, they will get you. That's what I've been told. Best subscribe. Thanks very much, guys. I hope to see you soon. Till then, take care.